Please come to order. Good morning. Welcome to Commissioner St. Mary's County meeting this date, Tuesday, March 20th, 2021. I am Randy Guy, President Commissioner St. Mary's County. I'd like to introduce the other commissioners. Sitting to my right, representing the 1st Commissioner District, which includes Ridge, Piney Point, St. George Island, Mr. Eric Colvin.
Good morning.
Representing the 2nd Commissioner District, which includes Leonardtown, Hollywood, Mr. Mike Hewitt.
Good morning.
Sitting to my left, representing the 3rd Commissioner District, which includes Charlotte Hall, 7th District, Golden Beach, and Mechanicsville, Mr. John O'Connor.
Good morning.
Representing the 4th Commissioner District, which includes Lexington Park, some of California, Great Mills, and some of Hollywood, Mr. Todd Morgan. Dr. Rebecca Bridget, our County Administrator, is sitting at the table to my left.
Good morning.
Elisa Casas, our Communications Director, is sitting at the table to my right.
Good morning.
Amy Carter, our Video Media Producer, is behind the glass. Please turn your cell phones off or on vibrate. At this time, we'll have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Morgan. Please stand.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as we enter the holy seasons of Passover and Lent, let us look to you for guidance. Let us see the Holy Week as a time for renewal and rebirth. Let us not mourn for what has happened, but look forward to the things that are ahead. Help and to guide us, Lord, in what we do, making decisions for the people of St. Mary's County. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
And
to the republic
which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Next, I need to approval of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have a proclamation for National Public Health Week. Commissioner Morgan, I think, is going to be reading that today.
Sure. Give me 1 second, please.
Yes, sir.
And they can come on up to the table. They're hesitating. You can come up and sit at
You
the
want to come on
table.
up?
Sure.
Please do. Come on up.
Pardon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Dr. Brewster has the official proclamation in hand. So whereas the week of April 5th to 11th, 2021 is National Public Health Week, a time to recognize the contributions of public health and to highlight the issues that are important to improving the health of our community. In the midst of the most challenging public health crisis in our lifetimes, it is more important than ever to celebrate Public Health Week under this year's theme, Building Bridges to Better Health. And whereas strong public health systems are critical for sustaining and improving community health, and whereas the St. Mary's County Health Department provides public health services to residents and visitors of the county, and whereas the St. Mary's County Health Department, along with our Health Improvement Coalition, the Healthy St. Mary's Partnership, educates and engages our residents and partners to foster a healthier community for ourselves and generations to come. And whereas a hallmark of the county's public health system is an extensive and effective collaboration among a wide range of public and private sector partners, so as to promote health throughout the many venues. And now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, do hereby recognize April 5th to 11th, 2021 as National Public Health Week in St. Mary's County, and we call upon all residents to understand the value of public health and adopt a healthy lifestyle habits. This date, March 30th, 2021. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, to get an
Thank you.
official photo, we'd like both of y'all to stand up, sort of get closer to the center there, and we're going to stand back here for an official photo. Very good, thank you. Dr. Brewster, will you please stay up here? Okay. Both of you step here if you want to.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn as the Commissioners of St. Mary.
Oh, not yet.
1 second.
Oh, you got something else? Another one?
Yes, something to do.
Dr. Brewster, the Commissioners of St. Mary's County officially commends Dr. Mina Brewster for your leadership and unwavering dedication to the citizens of St. Mary's County during the COVID-19 pandemic. Your strategic and innovative actions have served to protect our community and are admirable and worthy of recognition. We hereby extend our appreciation, offer best wishes for your future endeavor, and ask God's blessing upon you. This date, March 30, 2021, signed by the Commissioner of St. Mary's County. Thank you very much. Then the people, if you didn't see this magazine last week in advertisements in the Southern Maryland News, it was a panel that selected the 2021 Women to Watch. They got over 200 nominations, and Dr. Brewster is one of them. Out of 12. We thank you for everything you've done here, and we thank you for your guidance here. And I've also made one other thing. She used to tell us about someone who did something that inspired you. That's her sister. She had to be my doctor. And she doesn't even inspire me. So I can see where you get it from. But this is great news, and to have such a public servant in our presence and as our public nurse, doctor in our county, this is a great blessing. Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you so much. And, this is very moving to me, but I also want to say our entire health department team and so many of the community partners that have stepped forward and worked with us so closely this entire pandemic, that they're really what's made everything work.
And we ask all that, but it takes leadership to make it all work. And you've been a fine example of leadership
Thank you.
in this pandemic. And some don't like it because of restrictions and whatever, but we're just following the rules of the governor more than anything else. And you've stood by this, and you've worked with your health department officials up at the state level, and done a great job. Vaccinations, I've had nothing but great comments about how it's been run.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Dr. Brewster, and we know it's a big impact on your family.
There you go.
Can you get everybody now? Yes. Good. Both to the county, thank you. Now we can tend to the motion, Mr. O'Connor.
Well, why break a streak? Commissioner Colvin? I move to adjourn as the Commissioners of St. Mary's County and reconvene as the St. Mary's County Board of Health.
Second.
Have first, second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. As soon as Dr. Brewster's ready, we'll turn it over to her.
Dr. Brewster, since your husband's here, I just want to say that I'm glad in all these PowerPoints, I haven't seen any roadway interchanges or highways or anything like that. Yeah, I see you've moved away from that.
Yes. I had my moment of fun. Commissioner O'Connor is referring to the image of the uterus.
Yeah.
That was in one of our presentations at the beginning of Women's History Month. Sorry, I'm trying to find my pen. That I use to describe the intersection of various sectors in our community when it comes to equity. All right. Thank you, Commissioners, very much. That was very moving, and very much appreciate all of you and all of the amazing leadership and support that you all have demonstrated during
You have
this
to understand the
entire-
majority of people support you, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate
doubt.
that, sir.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with our COVID update. And we'll go over to the link. Thank you. And just as you know, for yesterday, as of yesterday, we've had 6,366 cases in St. Mary's County residents of COVID-19. About 47% of our population has tested at least once. We've seen a significant increase in the past couple weeks in the weekly case numbers and the new case rate, which I'll show in a moment. As we scroll down, to the weekly case numbers, which is that bar graph a little lower. Right here, you can see the new cases by week, and the past few weeks we have started to increase. This, along with the signs that we've been seeing across the state, are the troubling signs of us entering into another potential surge. And we're continuing to track this very closely. We're very concerned about this. Obviously, we're making good strides on vaccination of our population. We really need our public to continue to mask, to continue to maintain social distance, and get vaccine once they're eligible for vaccine. That will really help us keep this from becoming a more concerning surge like what we saw over the holidays. If you go down to the RT graph, our RT estimate is still at about 1. If you scroll over to the end there, and we're sitting at about 1. We are also continuing to monitor hospitalizations a little bit further down. Yep. We're continuing to monitor hospitalizations of St. Mary's County residents due to COVID-19. If you scroll that over, they have declined, which is a very encouraging sign. We think this is supported by the high rates of vaccination in our 65 and older population, those individuals who are most susceptible to hospitalization. So this is encouraging. Unfortunately, we usually see hospitalizations lag behind surge numbers, and so we will follow this very closely given the rising numbers we're seeing now. And then further down, if you look at our COVID-related fatalities, we're at 122 COVID-related fatalities in St. Mary's County residents at this point in time. And in our long-term care facilities further down, we have an active outbreak status. Thank you. Active outbreak status currently at Chesapeake Shores. And Charlotte Hall Veterans Home outbreak status closed, and St. Mary's Nursing Home outbreak status has been closed for some time. Commissioner, since we last met, we have confirmed additional variants of concern in clinical samples, so nose swabs that are sent for genomic analysis. We have some additional variants, UK variants that have been identified, and we've also now identified a California variant of concern here in St. Mary's County and a St. Mary's County resident. And again, this is based on the clinical samples. This week, we are starting to get some results back from our wastewater genomic analysis. We've gotten a few samples back now, and we're waiting for a whole slew that they've been accumulating over the past several weeks at the lab. And hopefully by next week, we'll have most of our results back from what we've sent up.
Do we have any updated information as to how the vaccines are handling the variants?
Yeah, actually, there is some new science recently published that suggests that the vaccines are more effective against certain variant viruses in people who've previously had COVID. So if you've previously had COVID and you get vaccine, that your body's immune response and coverage for the variant viruses is actually pretty strong, and maybe stronger than somebody who didn't have COVID and got vaccine. So if you've had COVID, it's still worth it to get vaccination because we know you get good coverage for good coverage against these variant viruses that are emerging. At this time, we don't have much more data as to how effective each vaccine is against the different variants, but I'll talk a little bit about what else we've discovered on the vaccine. For now, we're continuing to focus on vaccine administration and encouraging our residents, of course, to maintain all these measures that are so important. Actually, there is a recent science article that I will mention that the CDC published that looks at Moderna and Pfizer vaccine and suggests, up until this point, we've really been saying we're not sure how effective these vaccines are against silent infection. The studies seem to indicate that they're about 95% effective against symptomatic infection, and they're incredibly effective against hospitalizations and mortality related to COVID. But now we're finding out that even a couple weeks after the first dose of either Moderna or Pfizer, about 80% of people thus far seem to not even be getting infection at all. So that it's actually providing some level of immunity against the COVID-19 virus, not just the symptomatic infection. And then after 2 doses of the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, a couple weeks after that, once you're fully vaccinated, that level of protectiveness may actually be about 90% against actually getting any infection.
Wow.
So
This is
awesome
like
news
2
there.
weeks after you get the second injection, your immune system is able to build up and fight it.
Yes.
90%.
Yes. 2 weeks after your second dose
Right.
is when you're considered fully vaccinated.
Very good.
Yeah, that's great news. It
That's good
really is
news.
very encouraging. All right, let's go over to the next slide and talk about COVID-19 testing. Thank you. So there have been some significant updates in our testing services for the county for COVID-19, and all of these are maintained on our webpage, which I've referenced here. We are still doing drive-through and walk-up testing, no appointments needed, no orders needed. If people want to pre-register, they can online. We have all that instruction on our website, but it's not mandatory. But it does help the flow of traffic at the vaccine sites. We are maintaining for right now our Leonardtown Health Department testing site during the typical hours of 9 a.m. to 3:30 Monday through Friday. That has not changed. What has changed is that the Lexington Park Bay District Volunteer Fire Department site that we've been operating for the past few months at the, through the allowance from the Bay District Volunteer Fire Department and county government, of course. And thank you for that. I mean, it's really been great that we had access to that site for a few months. Thank you, Dr. Bridget and others who I know were very instrumental in getting that site up and giving us access to that site. And thank you especially to the Volunteer Fire Department that have given us access to their site to maintain testing there. That site now has closed. We are waiting on the transition with PNC Bank that I had referenced earlier. Once that transition happens, with the PNC Bank becoming available to us, we'll start our Lexington Park testing site at that location. For right now, that's not yet ready, and so we'll announce that when it is ready. We also have recently launched COVID testing at the school-based health centers, the one at Spring Ridge Middle School and the one at Margaret Brent Middle School. They are available to the community between 3 and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So between 3 and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, people can go, just like they do to our other testing sites, they can go to those 2 school-based health centers and get COVID testing. During spring break, this week, during spring break, we are also offering all-day testing at the Spring Ridge Middle School based health center. So from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday this week, and then 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday, we are offering COVID-19 testing at the Spring Ridge Middle School based health center.
And again, that's no appointment necessary.
No appointments, no cost, no orders.
You want to.
You show up. You actually stay in your car, you call a number, the nurse will come out to you and do your test from your car.
That's what, 301-475?
The number's there on site.
Okay,
You'll have to
good.
call. I don't have it memorized.
All right.
All right, and once spring break is over, we'll return to just the 3 to 6 p.m. hours, outside of school hours. All right, the next.
The spring break is 9 a.m.
During this week of spring break,
9
it's
a.m. to
from
6 p.m.
9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Monday through Thursday, and then 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday.
Yes,
Next week.
excellent.
Good, good.
Of this week, correct. This Friday.
Week.
This Friday?
Yes.
This week, okay.
Yeah, this week is spring break week. And then next week, we will go back to that 3 to
Normal
6
3 to
p.m.
6.
hours.
Understand, okay.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move forward and let's talk about vaccine. Lots of changes there since we last met a couple weeks ago. I just want to clarify, St. Mary's County is in Phase 2C of the state rollout plan. So the state will be moving into Phase 2B very shortly. I think today they make an announcement. But St. Mary's County is in Phase 2C and has been this week. That eligibility only applies to the St. Mary's County Health Department partnership vaccine site that we operate. It does not apply to the state-run regional sites. It does not apply to pharmacies or other places. They continue to be following the statewide phase, which is will soon be 2B. Right now, it's probably still 2A. St. Mary's County is in Phase 2C at our site. So these pages here that I've listed have all been updated. We have new guidance for people who have allergies. We have new guidance for how to who's eligible, which I'll go through in a moment. And we've also updated our FAQs. So I encourage the public who's still looking into vaccine and would like some guidance there to go to our webpage here and read up on all of that. Thank you. So who is eligible? This is who is eligible, again, in St. Mary's County through a St. Mary's County Health Department vaccine site. Again, this is not what is in practice throughout the rest of the state. The rest of the state is still in 2A. Any St. Mary's County resident age 55 and older, we will vaccinate at the St. Mary's County Health Department vaccine site. Any St. Mary's County resident who's 16 and older and has a disability, and that category is much broader than what we had previously defined it. Previously, it was just individuals with an intellectual or developmental disability. Now it's for, there's a wide range of possible disabilities that would qualify, and all of that is explained on our website. Any St. Mary's County resident, age 16 to 54, who has an eligible medical condition. And this list has also expanded from what we've been doing the past few weeks. The eligible medical conditions now include conditions that not just definitively are at risk for causing complicated COVID-19 disease. Those are the ones that we previously included. But now there's a list of conditions that could possibly lead to complications of COVID-19, ones that haven't definitively been shown to lead to complications, but could possibly. This includes moderate to severe asthma. It includes being overweight, so a BMI of 25 or greater. Previously, the BMI, when we had last met, we talked about that. The BMI criteria then was 30 or greater, which was the obese category. Now that BMI criteria has dropped to 25 or greater to include the overweight category. All right, as well as several other conditions. This is a busy group of conditions here, but all of these are on our website. And if we go to the next slide, I can talk about them.
Do they have to bring in a doctor's note or something?
No, and we've
Just say they
changed that
have.
process, and I'll describe that in a moment. Sir?
You had on there smokers, so people who smoke,
Yep.
and then non-smokers wouldn't be eligible?
So this is about who has been shown to have complications of COVID-19. When they've looked at the people ending up in hospitals, ending up dying, ending up with severe illness, being a smoker is a major risk factor for having complications of COVID-19.
It just strikes me as what someone's going to pull up a cigarette in their mouth and say, "Give me my shot."
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, it's just an image.
Understood. Yeah, understood. At this point, we're just dealing with outcomes, and later on, we can really deal. We're continuing to encourage people to stop smoking. We continue to encourage people to eat healthy and to exercise. We're continuing to encourage people to manage their asthma and manage their COPD and all these other medical conditions, right? But at this point in time, we want to keep people from dying, keep people from getting really sick, and keep people from having these long-term complications of COVID-19. And so when you look at the science tells you what are the factors that make somebody at much greater risk. And
I've always wondered how a civilized society like we are can allow its residents to kill themselves with smoke or smoking tobacco, but now we're going to put them to the front of the line over non-smokers for the vaccine. It just strikes me as an oxymoron. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. If you look at outcomes, though, you want to get the smokers to either quit their smoking or get their vaccine, because otherwise we start seeing the burden of that in our hospital systems, which affects everyone, not just the smoker. Great. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So again, just as a reminder, all 1A occupations, people working in these occupations that either live in this county and work in these occupations, even if it's in another county, or people who live in another jurisdiction that work in St. Mary's County in these occupations continue to be eligible in our current Phase 2C. If you move on to the next slide. We've added on some new occupational groups under 2C that are eligible now for COVID vaccine, including the ones that I've listed here. Could move to the next slide, please. Commissioner Guy, to directly address your question about how to verify eligibility, we've also changed our eligibility requirements. So really, it's the middle column. If you have a disability or an eligible medical condition, you do no longer need to bring a note from your doctor's office or a portion of your medical record. We have a form that's a self-certification form that's posted on our website, and that's also available at our vaccine site. People need to review that form and attest on that form that they have one of the above qualifying conditions. Right? Once they attest and that they have one of the qualifying conditions, they will proceed and get vaccine. The other verifying eligibility of occupation has not changed, and additional guidance is on our website for that. So again, doctor's notes are no longer required. People will need to self-certify or self-attest, really, that they have the medical condition that makes them eligible. For who is getting vaccinated, again, nearly 30,000 residents. We've added on about almost 1,000 yesterday that are not reflected in these numbers. So about over 30,000 residents really have received their first dose already of COVID-19 vaccine, and many more this week. We have a lot of second dose clinics scheduled this week, many more, so that number will increase a lot as well for those who've received their final dose. Of the ones administered by the Health Department Partnership, we've now vaccinated, actually it's over 26,000 first dose of COVID vaccine. And you can see the percentages really reflect strong vaccination rates in our 65 and older population, and we want to continue to improve those numbers. And even though we've moved into Phase 2C, we will immediately prioritize anybody who is 65 and older who still wants vaccine, or who still is eligible for vaccine because of their age, 65 and older. If they want to get vaccine, we will prioritize them to get vaccine. They can either connect with the Department of Aging and Human Services, who continues to maintain a callback list of seniors who might not have access to computers or need a little help with phone registration, or they can connect with us directly at the St. Mary's County Health Department COVID hotline. Even if they're computer savvy, if they're 65 and older and they want to get vaccine, we'll get them connected to a vaccine appointment.
Tell me, I see the 75 and older lags behind the 65 to 74. Is there a reason? I mean, it seems like that population would want to be...
Yeah, so it wasn't lagging behind in the beginning, as we were focusing more on that 75 and older, and that's who was primarily eligible. Once the eligibility dropped to 65, of course, we saw the rise in percentages there. So I don't know the answer to that. I know that's something we're looking into in terms of what else can we do to reach that population. But at this point in time, we're really focused on the 65 and older group to include those who are 75 and older.
Okay.
Okay. So that's almost 26% of our population that's received at least their first dose. You move to the next slide. So this is the distribution by race and ethnicity, and we're nearing 13% of our Black residents who've received their first dose of COVID vaccine, and about 2% of residents who identify as Hispanic in ethnicity who've received their first dose of COVID vaccine. This is still below our population proportions of both Black residents and those who identify as Hispanic. And it is, again, far below the impact that we've seen of COVID-19 on both of these minority groups. So we are continuing to work on this, next slide please, with our Get Out the Vax partnership that we have with our local NAACP chapter, as well as our local Minority Outreach Coalition. There is a lot of outreach and partnership that's gone into this, and really excited about what has come out of this partnership for our community. If you go to the next slide. Even just these past couple weekends, we've launched a faith campaign where we're working with a variety of faith-based settings in the community to get vaccine registration events at their faith-based setting. This past weekend, there were 3 different churches we went to. The weekend before, we went to St. Mark's. So far, we've gone to these 4 different faith-based settings to offer vaccine registration on site and answer questions and really talk about vaccine and address any questions that people have about vaccine. This has really been a wonderful partnership. I'm so very, very thankful to the Minority Outreach Coalition, the NAACP chapter, and all of these churches and their spiritual leaders who've stepped forward and recognized the importance of this for their congregations and the whole community. We completely welcome additional faith-based settings. We've got some in plan for this weekend as well, and welcome others. And anybody who's interested in that can email the Minority Outreach Coalition at that email address that I've indicated there. We also are planning a Get Out the Vax Faith event on April 11th, and this will be an event where different faith-based settings can sign up their congregants and come as a caravan, essentially, to the vaccine testing site. We are reserving the vaccine testing site just for the local faith-based groups, and we're excited about this. This is a really great way for our spiritual community to come together and protect their whole community and show their support for ending this pandemic. And if there's faith-based groups that are interested in participating in that, they can contact, again, that email that I've indicated here, or you can call the health department directly as well. Okay. Go to the next one, please. And then again, just as a reminder to our residents, we do post the links for vaccine appointments every Saturday at 4 o'clock and at this webpage here. And they can go there and get the forms for self-certifying if they need, review all the eligibility criteria that I've just discussed, take the pre-screener to make sure that they are eligible. They'll be able to get ready for that Saturday 4 p.m. posting.
Dr. Brewster, are we still getting an adequate supply of vaccines to?
No, we're not. The supply has increased. We received 2,100 doses for this week, including a small portion of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. We are still advocating for more vaccine supply coming to St. Mary's County and specifically to our health department because we are the main vaccinators in the county. Hopefully the state will soon start receiving expanded vaccine supply from federal government. That's what's been communicated out to all states. And we anticipate that as the state receives more vaccine supply, hopefully we will also receive more vaccine supply here locally. We are seeing more doctors' offices now start to get vaccine supply so that some primary care doctors' offices are now offering vaccine for their patients. And so as that venue of getting vaccine increases, right? As more primary care doctors' offices get vaccine, residents will also have more access through that venue.
Thank you.
Good. Dr. Brewster, help me a little bit understand. This week being Easter, my wife and I will be visiting with our grandchildren, and thank God we can do that.
Yes.
And because recently they said seniors, the CDC said seniors can gather and with their grandchildren and people as long as my wife and I have been vaccinated. Also said you can go to 3 feet social distancing in schools now. The kids can be a little closer. But then yesterday, Dr. Walensky, CDC, talked of impending doom. What's that mean?
Yeah, well, as you can see, it goes back to the data I was suggesting. The cases are rising. And anytime we start to see the cases rise and the hospitalizations rise and all these types of indicators of an oncoming surge, we grow very concerned. We've only vaccinated a small percentage of our population nationally. There is still, we are nowhere near where we need to be for this concept of herd immunity. We're making strides to that, but as we are making strides there, we're also seeing these variant viruses have more and more of a presence, right, because they're continuing to spread. And we are also seeing that some people are not adhering to masking and social distancing and travel recommendations, including those individuals who have not yet been vaccinated. So all of this is what we're concerned about, and that's why we want to continue for people to wear their masks, to get vaccine if they have access to it, and to go ahead and try to maintain their hand washing and all the things that we've been talking about this past year.
Okay, now, I guess my point gets to be is it's kind of conflicting
Sure,
messages.
understand.
But we have states who are opening up now, Texas and I think Florida, whoever these states are, they're taking away the mask mandates. I think Arkansas is another one I heard doing it. When do you see that being the case in Maryland? What metrics do we have to get where masks are not required and social distancing is not required?
I would say, in my professional opinion, this is not the time to remove masking, and this is not the time for people to stop wearing their masks.
When you talk about 26% have been at least one dose, you say when we get to 80% or?
When we start seeing that the pandemic indicators, the new cases, the impact on hospitalizations, all that kind of stuff, when that has come down and we've been able to maintain that, I think then we'll be in a much different place. When we talk about herd immunity, typically people are talking about that 70 to 90% of a population that's been immunized. Keep in mind, there's a good chunk of our population that's not even eligible for vaccine because they're too young. These vaccines so far have, the youngest age that can get vaccine is 16 right now. So there's still a portion of our population that is still not eligible for vaccine just because of their age, and will not be until we have a vaccine that's been approved for that age group. So that's, how are we going to achieve 70 to 90% herd immunity while we still have such a large portion of our population that's not eligible?
Well, the president's talked about everybody should be vaccinated by June.
Adults. Right.
All the adults, okay.
Yeah.
And hospitalizations have been declining, which is great news.
For us here, they are starting to
I'm
tick
with you,
up.
but here's what I'm
elsewhere.
trying to say. Does that group include anybody who's been vaccinated to hospitalizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the 60-plus age group is where we've seen our lowest new cases, right? And I think that aligns really well with what we are seeing with the 60-plus age group as being the ones that we've really focused on for vaccine thus far. And we now know that getting vaccine, being fully vaccinated, is incredibly effective at preventing infection. And we've known for some time that it's also incredibly effective against hospitalizations and so forth. So we're excited that the impact in our seniors in particular is lower now. But again, there's a large segment of our population that still has not been vaccinated. And we're continuing to try to get them vaccinated. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, great. Thank you very much again for
Dr.
today,
Brewster.
and thank you for all that.
Well, thank you very much for all your service to us. Thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn as Board of Health.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn as the St. Mary's County Board of Health and reconvene as the Commissioner of St. Mary's County.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any other noes? Ayes have it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, Dr. Brewster. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the legislation update by the Office of the County Attorney. Mr. David Wyckoff, our County Attorney, will give us a briefing on the latest from Annapolis.
Good morning, Commissioners. About
Good
13 days left, right, before they adjourn.
Hey!
So lots will happen. Let's, not terribly much to report today. I did want to tell you that we are keeping a bill on the revisions for the Kerwin bill that are coming fast and furious now, because the bill, and the bill that they've put forward for the revisions was amended in the House, but two major provisions of direct interest to counties remain intact, and that's the delay of the fiscal year 2022 funding requirements that would have obligated multiple jurisdictions to higher spending levels for the coming years for the maintenance of effort. Again, not really terribly a concern for us. And what's also interesting is that if you look at the article that I gave you, they have ordered the Department of Legislative Services to conduct a study of the impact of the blueprint for Maryland's future on county governments and the capacity of counties to meet the local maintenance of effort requirements as the annual amounts increase in future years. So that'll be an interesting study.
Yeah, I mean,
to
they
see.
didn't do
But-
that before.
They're doing it after they pass
do
everything.
after they
It's an
pass.
afterthought,
Right.
yeah.
So a very good point, Commissioner. But that's basically it for my first memo. And the second memo talks about the House Bill 589, which is the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2021, which MACO states that the Senate, following the House, passes a county-friendly budget. And the reason they say county-friendly budget is that the SSTAT cost shift is dead, that the community college funding has been restored, the erroneous convictions cost shift is dead. I don't know that that really affected us much down here. And let's see, House Bill 590, which I attempted to be able to read the 150 pages and talk to you guys about intelligently. However, last night they made 128 amendments to it and are going to vote on it today. So whatever I learned probably isn't true anymore. But what I will tell you is that the specifics that are pointed out for St. Mary's County, that there still is 150,000 granted to the sports complex for the plan, design, and construction, 1.8 for grant for the detention center. 250,000 was struck for the St. Mary's County Airport, but it was struck because they believed it was a duplicate of another $250,000 grant for the Innovative Center for Autonomous Systems. And then $2 million for Historic St. Mary's Commission for deferred maintenance, and that's on top of about 16 million, excuse me, for the new Maryland Heritage Interpretive Center, the visitor center that they're going to build down there. And then parks and playgrounds, about 1.5 million. Ridge Volunteer Fire Department grant, if you recall, that's 500,000 is still in there. 100,000 for the Pax River Naval Air Museum and Visitor Center grant, and 312,000 for the Point Lookout water treatment storage and distribution system and wastewater treatment system. It's an infrastructure improvement fund. And then 20 million was stricken from St. Mary's College for the academic building and auditorium, but with an explanation that the General Assembly that they expect to fully restore those funds with general funds through the submission of a supplemental budget. So that's where I am with House Bill 590. As I say, today they're going to vote on it, so it'll be interesting to see. And then we've listed, what's coming along with the local bills on the last page, just to keep, nothing really happening, just that, they're moving forward. I don't know if commissioners have any questions or wanted us to look at something that we haven't been so far, or?
Did 655 get out of committee?
655, if we
Senate?
It's
look
still
at,
sitting in committee.
Huh?
still sitting in committee, and
Committee.
it's, yeah, I haven't seen any new movement on it. Any other questions?
Have we heard anything in regards to the BOE funding, maintenance of effort funding, if they're going to hold that harmless?
I haven't so far, no.
I've caught up to it, it's still dickering back and forth.
Okay. Mr. Weisskopf, over the weekend, I did some research on a bill that was passed last year, Senate Bill 523. And it was a workaround of the Trump, I shouldn't call it Trump, federal tax cut from 2018 that impacted high Maryland earners. Is that something you've been, or can you take a look at?
We've taken a look at it. We've completed a memo for you, but I bothered finance with it yesterday, but I know that they're focused on the budget right now, because what it deals with is, how pass-through entities are taxed. And I can tell you from experience in my private practice, when business formation is easy, you come in and say, hey, I want to, an LLC or a,
S corporation.
or S corp, or like I would always tell them, go talk to your accountant first and find out what's best. So I need to talk to our accountant to give us the finance numbers. But I know that they said it was supposed to be a cost neutral to the counties. But I can give you the memo now, and then we'll just
That's all right.
supplement it with
when you're done. I mean,
Okay.
We don't have to really finalize this budget till
Sure.
May anyway.
Sure. Like I said, we'll get with finance when they're not so busy and plug some numbers in for you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, anybody? Okay. Okay, with that being done, we'll go on to the county administrator time.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. And just a note that you don't have a meeting scheduled next week for April 6th, so we'll look at the 2 draft meeting agendas. The first is April 13th, 4 proclamations, Week of the Young Child, Maryland Flood Awareness Month, National Animal Control Week, and National Public Safety Telecom Week. Also, your St. Mary's County Board of Health meeting, tentatively scheduled with the Department of Land Use and Growth Management, is the decision for the proposed amendment to the official zoning maps of St. Mary's County to delete the existing 1,000-foot critical area boundary line and replace with the new critical area boundary line from the statewide base map as required by House Bill 1253. Also, from the Office of the County Attorney is a request for public hearing for the proposed ethics ordinance. Also, from the Office of the County Attorney is legislative updates. You also have a closed session that morning for personnel. Also, the next week, April 20th, 4 proclamations scheduled: Fair Housing Week, National Library Week, National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and National County Government Month. Also, Department of Economic Development has a request for public hearing for the proposed commercial property tax credit. And then the Department of Land Use and Growth Management, a request for public hearing for rezoning PB2 LLC. And then you have your public forum scheduled 6:30 that evening. For this morning's county administrator business items, we begin with 5B with the Department of Aging and Human Services with the State of Maryland Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Lori Jennings Harris is leading the discussion, and she'll introduce those folks that are with her. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning, Dr. Bridget. And good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So the first item is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP-1. Joining me is Dennis Nicholson from the St. Mary's County Housing Authority. In the audience is Lanny Lancaster from Three Oaks Center, as well as Cynthia Brown, the Human Services Division Manager for the Department of Aging and Human Services. So this is a grant opportunity for St. Mary's County from the U.S. Treasury through the Department of Housing and Community Development for a grant in the amount of $4,515,115. These funds would provide direct financial assistance to renters who may have housing instability to help with their rental payments, those who have been affected by the COVID pandemic with a reduction or loss of income. The lead agency for distribution of the funds is the Housing Authority for St. Mary's County. Also involved with this process would be the Department of Social Services and Alexis Zoss and her staff. And the grant term would be through September of 2022. And Dennis is here, as well as Lanny and Cynthia, to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head around $4.5 million worth of rental assistance. Now, that sounds like they could pay the rental for everybody in the county for a year. I'm not sure if that's the number, Mr. Nicholson. It just seems like a lot of money, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But how would, okay, if someone wants to qualify, do they have to be behind on their rent? And if they're behind on their rent, does it forward fund any of their rent? How will this program work?
All good questions. Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you, Commissioners, for your team bringing this application and this funding opportunity for our community here today. This is moving very fast. It is Department of Treasury money. It's a new toolbox for our county. It focuses on March 2020 and moving forward. The money would reach back for folks who are in arrears and make whole that arrear problem with the property owner. It's a mutual relationship between renter and property owner to agree to pay that arrears. There's also a component of this money coming from the Department of Treasury to pay 3 months of front rental assistance, which can be renewed for another 3 months. The money can also assist with utilities, arrear issues there. The $4.5 million, portion of that, about 8%, will help our team here, Department of Social Services, your team in Community Services, Three Oaks Homeless Shelter and the House Authority, continue to have outreach, work with a range of population groups, from disabled to the small landlord, get this message out, also in collaboration with the State Department of Housing and Development. We're at the application stage. The state is also at the application stage, and the state will be doing a public information push in the near future, which we want to align with. And I don't want to necessarily confuse our folks in the county right now with a sprinkling of details when we have ongoing details being refined right now.
Okay, I got you. But you just had a big section back here of question and answers, and I was reading through those. 'Cause I think it's great. It looks like your group's going to make about $361,000 to administer this grant if it comes through, which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just don't know, what the need is. I don't know if the need's $1 million or if it's $10 million. And if
Well,
are people actually being kicked out because they haven't paid their rent?
I think there's a moratorium on evictions still, correct?
the moratorium has been, yesterday was extended to June 30th of this year, so that's very helpful in the timing of this resource. If you're reaching back to pay arrears, there's no cap on how much money your arrear problem is. It's a time component. The Treasury rule will say you can pay up to 12 months of arrears. Now, what that dollar amount is, Commissioners, in some of our situations, we've had to write off a $3,000, a $6,000 arrear situation from time to time. This set of funds is bringing cash into our community to circulate it to both meet a human need from housing and also a investment debt need for the property owner who's also trying to make his or her mortgage payment.
We've heard a lot from what I call mom and pop landlords. Some would have 2 or 3 rental properties or accumulated rental properties, and they haven't been getting paid for a long time, and there's not much they can do about it other than, beg for relief. So those people will be taken care of, which I assume will be good, but there won't be no commercial relief, right? Just only be residential relief?
Residential only, yes.
Okay.
I think, I'm with Commissioner Hewitt on that. It seems like the moratorium on evictions has helped protect renters, but the property owners are the ones that are kind of in trouble, and this is helping them out. The only concern, the $361,000 $100,000 roughly, that the 8% that's going to administrative, it looks like you're going to be hiring about 4 FTEs with this. Is this grant expected to be recurring to be able to keep those people on staff, or is there any look to the future with that?
We are being told at the federal level that there will be a second phase to this Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program. But in hiring, it would be on a contract basis. And that 8% isn't just administrative. We're needing to also use it as what we call program delivery. We're not looking at tracking a general ledger. What we're looking for is the staff and the knowledgeable professional folks to be talking to the mom and pops from the property's point of view, to making sure that this money is adding to our already group approach, community approach for housing instability needs, housing crisis needs, homeless situations, and again, back to the property owner who's trying to pay his or her mortgage.
So the question I just want to make very clear with an answer is, if somebody has rental properties and it's not subsidized housing, okay, outside of that group, the average rent's $1,400 a month, that person's $1,400 a month behind because they lost their job. Is that renter eligible, or is there going to be preference given to subsidized housing?
There's no preference given to subsidized housing, and Commissioner, I'm glad you used the word eligible. The Treasury has put a income ceiling on what's called eligible, and that's 80% of medium here in St. Mary's County.
Which would be what, please?
I was getting there, Commissioner. I'm just not as fast. So for a family of 4, that's approximately $78,000 a year. Now, the Treasury is asking to have a focus more at 50% of medium, but again, folks, at $78,000 is the working range of who we're trying to assist. And the example we just gave would be an example. Our team need to find out who that person is and having a conversation, see, Mr. and Mrs. Leonard, do you want to participate? And can this help you?
Very good.
So following Commissioner O'Connor, you've given us there's income criteria basis. Is there a high or low limit on the rent amount?
No.
So somebody could have a $2,000 a month mortgage or rental payment, or a $3,000 a month rental payment, and as long as they meet this income criteria, they can get the money.
We're talking in general terms, but yes, Commissioner, because we're looking at a time frame, March 2020 forward, and they're income eligible, there's agreement for mutual participation, and they fit into that time frame, then it isn't a question of a cap on the dollar amount. It's the dollar amount within that 12-month period.
Is there any work-related requirements? Because we have numerous people out here now who are, in the job market, and we've heard from numerous business persons that it's easier to live on unemployment and the bonus money that the Treasury is giving out to not have to work.
Right.
So I'm assuming in this program, work is not a requirement to get the money.
Your financial hardship is the requirement, and then there's an assessment to determine that.
Well, define financial hardship. If someone doesn't want to work because they get more money out of unemployment, is that a financial hardship?
Your question's very broad, Commissioner. I'm not wanting to just give a yes or no to that. I would want to be looking at our assessment case managers as a group to be doing a case-by-case decision. I hear your point, but I can't just universally make that comment right now.
Well, that's very carefully worded.
So the other question I would have is that subsidized housing, the government is not has not stopped paying the landlords their portion of the rent for what's formerly Section 8, right? Whatever you want to call it. So the government has not stopped paying that portion of it.
Commissioner O'Connor, you're correct. If it's funding from the United States Department of Agriculture has a subsidy there, which we do have some of that here in St. Mary's County, or from the Department of Housing and Development under the Housing Choice Voucher Program, that subsidy has been continuing and helping the financial situation of those property owners.
Right. So my point is the people that are paying $25 and $50 a month for rent, while they may be eligible for this, is there going to be a criteria that says they're already being subsidized, the landlord's already being paid, their portion of the rent's $25 of a month? Are you going to look for the person that has a more significant hardship that has $1,400 a month? Or how are you going to balance that? Because I think it would be ridiculous to waste the money on $25 a month when you have people that are out here with $2,000 a month in rent.
Very good point, because the Treasury folks are saying, look out for duplication. We're not wanting to have duplication, and we want to look at those in greatest financial hardship.
Okay.
If you're already at some level of assistance, we're wanting to have our outreach team, which is part of that 8% money, to have a viable outreach team to look for those situations, listen for those situations, and follow up on those situations.
I mean, I think it's also a matter of how you view hardship and how you establish what hardship is, unless the Treasury Department's establishing that hardship criteria, correct? Are they establishing the hardship criteria, or are you? Outside of the $78,000?
It's a collaboration with the policy at the Department of Housing and Development. We're looking for any further clarification on their part. If not, it will be a case management call.
Well, I think that's my point. And when you talk about hardship, I guess there's two ways of looking at it. You have somebody that's on public assistance. For whatever reason, they're on public assistance, whether it's disability or they're just on public assistance. Then they're also receiving assisted housing. So now they're paying $25 a month, $50 a month, $100, whatever that prorated amount is. They are capable of working, right? But for some reason they're not, or if they're disabled, they can't. So their hardship, it's a matter of perspective compared to the person that's earning $70,000 a year that got cut back, that's now earning $50,000 a year that can't make it. So that's where I'm looking at what is the criteria, because that hardship sounds, and on face value, sounds 20 times worse than the person that's making $50,000 that can't make the rent. So I want to make sure that, you know, as this money is being put out there, that the hardships are being looked at on an individual case by case, that we're ensuring that we're not targeting one group that is in certain programs, or a group of programs, I should say, because that hardship sounds worse than it actually is, or appears worse than it actually is, when it's not actually a hardship.
I'm in agreement with you. We're in agreement with that philosophy.
Okay.
We're also wanting to look at this as a new toolbox. This is coming from Treasury. This is a banking source of money. The income limits are much higher, and it's our role to make sure that folks who normally wouldn't be touched because of lower income limits will be assisted, will have a level of availability that previously we weren't able to have that type of outreach because of the income limit restrictions.
All right. And I think to bring it back full circle on my point is, there are people that earn just enough not to qualify for EBT, right? So they earn just enough not to qualify for that, but they don't earn enough to actually put food on the table. So, or any other type of assistance. So what I want to make sure here is the people that are choosing, or in their particular situation, that are receiving assistance and the EBT and everything that goes with it, there's no disproportionate to it based on the income of the person that just barely makes it right there. Because these people are the ones that are suffering the most. right? And that's the way I view it. The people that just are right under that criteria, that have to work 3 different jobs, that are out there doing everything, and they still don't make it to where they need help because they have to, that's the problem. So I just want to make sure that's the kind of balance you're looking for, is to touch that group of people that.
I'm very encouraged that this new toolbox gives us the ability to
Very good.
have that balance.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
So how will you work with Ms. Harris on this? Or would the straight pass through? She gets it and passes it to you?
Treasury has an application from the state of Maryland. Treasury has awarded the state of Maryland a statewide application. Now the governor has dedicated Department of Housing and Human Development at the state level to administer this, which is now a grant application for you all. The funds will come to the county. The most we can request up front is 25%. We would want to request that dollar amount come through the county and then go into a dedicated emergency rental assistance bank account for disbursement there. At that point, as a group, we should be able to have cash flow management because we've upfronted. And as we see spending the pace, we want that to pick up, then we can work with your great folks in county finance, along with community service, to do the appropriate requisition so we don't get into a cash flow problem. Now, there's no match for this money. We just have to manage the pass-through. There's going to be a level of quality control that the state will be looking, and the Office of Community Services will also be looking at appropriateness. And again, the production and pace of this money. It's, in my opinion, it's to our benefit in the county to appropriately move this money as quickly and best we can in order to position the county for future funding opportunities. It's just my opinion.
So I don't disagree with any of that. I think that's a good point. I think the difficult thing that's kind of been referenced a little bit here in this discussion, just from my seat, what's difficult is getting a clear idea of how broad the issue is, how many people are going to be impacted by it. And it sounds like you're still working to figure that out and will be once this funding's received. But I mean, $4.5 million is one of the bigger grants that we've seen for rental assistance. As you go forward with this, assuming that we get this $4.5 million, can we get quarterly reports about how the money was distributed? An Excel spreadsheet with this, it was provided to this family with no personal information in it, with they had an income level at this, the rent was this, here's how much was provided to them, just so we can get a breakdown of and see where the money's going and the needs in the community, where they're at in our community, where they live, that kind of thing.
Commissioners, yes, you will have that. You're getting that report emulates what the Department of Treasury wants from us locally and what from the state. I should reference that the docket at the district court, there's 1,000 eviction cases that haven't been acted on. That's one source for this money. And then there's many others, either in mobile home parks, even RV parks would be potential. We need to be reaching out to, yes, the docket for evictions and many other situations, and as Commissioner O'Connor was saying, for the other folks who may say, well, I've never been able to qualify. We're trying not to put a barrier here, and that's what the state is telling us, to make it simple and limit barriers, but have appropriate documentation.
So then, one last thing. You notice there's like 1,000 cases over at the court, right, for eviction, roughly, give or take. I'm not looking for a specific number. Why can't you just write the check to the landlord? I mean, why do the landlords have to suffer through this process of not getting the money that's paid forward? So is there a restriction for the landlord to put in for the funding? I
Well,
mean, if they're already in eviction, obviously there's some sort of hardship that's causing it.
Commissioners, my understanding, when we receive this money, we want to be writing checks
To whom?
to the landlord.
So the money goes from you to the landlord, not from you to the property owner or the renter.
It's not another pass-through, no.
But my point is why does the individual that's living there, let's say I don't have the house, Commissioner Morgan's the landlord, I don't know about this program, but Commissioner Morgan does. So I make my renter aware of it. I realize the problem. How come the landlord can't apply for the assistance to get that rent paid
Directly to him.
directly to them, instead of waiting on the person that's living there to basically take action?
That's, again, part of when we receive this money, to have that type of outreach, to have that type of discussion with the property owner, the landlord, so that if there's a direct need of financial hardship on that landlord, yes, the tenant has to be technically eligible, but the money needs to go to that landlord.
So the landlord could reach out to you and say, I have a year of $12,000 of rent that hasn't been paid. My renter is this person. This is what they put on their application, whatever it is. Or does the landlord have to make that renter contact you and go through a process in order to get the funding?
No, Commissioner, we want to have communications directly with the landlord, communications with those who need. This is.
Well, these are
These are good questions, but this is a broader approach than previous programs. And again, I keep saying this is a new toolbox.
Well, I have no problem with the funding. I think it's amazing. What I just want to make sure is that the people that are watching, when they see this, there's going to be questions that the landlords are obviously, like I just asked, and I don't own any properties, but that's the first thing that popped into my head is, am I going to have to wait for this person? I already got them in eviction. Can I just apply and go from there? So I wanted to make sure it was clear that landlords can contact our agencies and say, hey, look, I got this person in eviction. I'd like to get them out of it. This is how much they owe me. Let's get this ball rolling. So at least there's some different side.
That's the way I perceive this. And
That's awesome.
I'm waiting for our folks at the state to put together their public information push, so we cannot frustrate our folks here in St. Mary's County. And
That's good. I'm glad it's a multifaceted approach. That's great.
Good.
Mr. President, I move that the Commissioner of St. Mary's County, Maryland, authorize the submittal of an application for U.S. Treasury funds in the amount of $4,515,115 through the Department of Aging and Human Services for the establishment of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP-1, and to approve the request for a public hearing upon notification of award and sign the related documents.
Second.
I'd like to, as this program proceeds, I'd like to have an update, maybe quarterly, on how it's going and who and how the money is being dispersed.
That's what I asked for, Tom.
You already asked for that.
I just want you to see you get it.
but
Just go get it.
Let's go get it. I think
and then, yes,
Then we'll
we will
worry
want to
about
come back and
you'll be
keep.
following the guidelines of the federal government, the state, and provide the information to us on a quarterly basis.
You're looking at me, but there's a team of
I understand that,
folks,
yeah. Yeah.
and there are needs in our community.
Understand.
And I appreciate you all making this happen on your agenda today, because again, this was moving very quickly.
Mr. Nicholson, we're looking at you because you're sitting there, sir.
Yep.
That goes with the territory.
You're sitting right there.
Then fine, I'll take.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm trying to be fair. I'm sorry. My point is, look, this is a good thing. If you can get it, good luck.
Yeah.
Godspeed, that kind of thing.
Okay, I got a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Laura.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Commissioners. And item C is from the Department of Aging and Human Services with the FY 2022 Senior Rides Program Grant Application. Ms. Lori Jennings Harris, Director, continuing.
Thank you, Dr. Bridget. So Commissioners, you've seen this before. It's the Senior Rise Grant application for FY 2022, and I think if awarded, if approved to move forward and awarded, it will be our 14th year. So this comes from the Maryland Department of Transportation. The grant request would be in the amount of $22,100. It's door-to-door transportation by volunteer drivers for older adults to doctor's appointments, to help them run errands, et cetera.
I'm sorry, I have one that says the amount of $35,000.
That's the total
That's the
program.
total grant
Okay,
amount with
okay.
county funds and donations.
I move to approve the FY 2022 Senior Rides Grant Application Project MD 2205 from the Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Administration, on behalf of the St. Mary's County Department of Aging and Human Services in the amount of $35,652, and authorize the Commission President to execute the related documents.
Second.
This question, discussion. Ms. Harris?
Yes.
When I was in business, we had people who would provide transportation in these programs, and they would bring their cars to me for repair and whatnot. Some of them shouldn't have probably been on the road, but they were doing what they had to do. My question to you is, it talks here about people doing this rides program, providing their own vehicles for the transportation. Do you have some kind of minimum requirements on insurance or on different types of things that they have to meet? It's not like, look, I can borrow my brother-in-law's car on Monday and I can do it and pick up. How's that work?
So yes, we do. There's an application process, so we go through the application process with potential drivers. We have not accepted everyone who wants to drive for various reasons. They're supposed, so they have to have insurance, but there's coverage as well through the county. But also, their car has to be in top shape. So we're not expecting anyone to drive the vehicle that is set for years and is not in good repair. So there are a number of things that on the list that we check off to make sure we have good drivers and good vehicles on the road.
Okay, I only bring it up because I remember one time the person who was being driven in the car said, this car drives terrible when we're driving, and that what we were trying to address. That. But the point is, you do have standards for people who want.
Yes,
okay,
we
thank
do.
you.
I have a question. You got these, enables them to get to medical appointments, errands, and social activities.
Yeah, so for example, if someone has a grandchild who's playing in a little league game and they have no other way of getting there, or other family members are not willing to transport them, then we want them to not just go to doctor's appointments, we want them to be able to get out and socialize as well.
Could this same person's asked to be driven for an early voting or voting center every 2 years when we have elections here?
It's possible if that's a request.
Okay, just curious about this. Okay, I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. And item D is also from the Department of Aging and Human Services with the FY 2021 Senior Rides Operating Agreement. Ms. Harris?
Thank you, Dr. Bridges. So similarly, this is the notification of grant award for the same program, Senior Rides Program, for FY 2021.
I move to approve the FY21 Senior Rides Operating Grant Agreement Project MD 2105 from the Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Administration, on behalf of the St. Mary's County Department of Aging and Human Services in the amount of $37,632, including $15,532 of county funding, and authorize the Commissioner President to execute the budget amendment returning $694 to the Commissioner's Emergency Reserve and sign the other related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
That was easy.
Thank you, Commissioner Shultz.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, item E is from the Department of Economic Development with the Restaurant, Hotel, and Online Telework Maryland Relief Grant Funds. Mr. Castellanos presenting this morning. Good morning.
Morning, Ms. Kathleen.
Good morning. Morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Dr. Bridget. The Maryland Relief Act of 2021 was signed into law on February 15th, 2021, and includes more than $1 billion in tax relief and economic stimulus for struggling families and small businesses who are suffering as a result of the COVID pandemic. Funds are to be used by local governments to provide direct assistance to two of Maryland's severely impacted industries, hotels and restaurants. The statute also provides for grants to assist businesses in setting up online sales and employee telework opportunities. St. Mary's County has been awarded $417,443.88 for restaurant grants, $189,747.22 for hotel grants, and $9,487.36 for grants for small firms setting up online sales. Our department has been making grants since the beginning of the pandemic. We have reviewed over 500 grant applications to date. For this new round of grants, DED proposes the following parameters for the restaurant grants and hotel grants. Open online applications on Monday, April 5th, and close the portals on Friday, April 23rd. That's 3 business weeks. We will then determine the individual grant amounts by dividing the total award amounts by the number of applications, keeping in mind the individual grant limits of $12,000 for restaurants and $25,000 for hotels. If we have remaining funds at the close of those initial periods, we will open up the online application portals again to attract more applicants. I mentioned that the county was provided $9,487 for grants to businesses to assist in setting up online sales and offering employees telework. We feel that amount is a little too small for us to set up a full grant program. Other counties I know are struggling with what to do with that money. I think Calvert was awarded only $7,000, and some smaller counties even less than that. It's really not enough. But we reached out to the Chamber of Commerce, and we asked them if they would help us with this, and they said yes, they would. So they're going to go through a process and recommend 3 companies to us, and we'll do 3 $3,000 grants based on their recommendation. And we'll do the checking to make sure they're in good standing and have all the correct forms and everything. So just as an FYI, not this, but we're also getting state grant funding. We'll be coming back soon to you for nonprofits through the Department of Housing and Community Development. That'll be $375,000 more for nonprofits.
Great.
So if the commissioners approve this, we'll open it up on April 5th. All the funds must be dispersed by June 30th.
So I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of money before for restaurants. We got a whole bunch of money for hotels, and we dispersed that money.
Yes, we did.
So you're saying we have $9,000 left over, or we're getting $475,000 and or
This is Hogan's money here, though, right?
Yeah, so,
This is Hogan's billion.
3 different pots.
yeah, Commissioner Morgan, correct. Commissioner Colvin's correct. We're getting $417,000 for restaurants, $189 for hotels, and only $9,400 for, it's how they're
So
defining.
this is on top of what we've already distributed.
This is new money, yeah.
New money.
Just coming.
Modern monetary theory. I tell you, this is just the
Just
greatest
keeps
thing in the
coming,
world.
just keeps-
You
We
never
can
have to pay
print
it back,
and print
you know.
and print.
It never has to be paid
It
back.
never has to be paid back. You just can keep
I swear.
spending, and there's
It's
never any debt.
amazing.
Just keeps coming.
Well, now, are you going to use people who have already qualified for these? I mean, you seeing new people coming in?
It's open to any restaurant and any
I
hotel.
agree with you,
Yeah.
Mr.
But that includes,
Kaslimas,
we're
but-
back to, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, the only thing I want to say is the same people who have been receiving these will be eligible.
Absolutely true.
And anybody new could apply and be eligible.
That's
But
right.
Who's new after the first
I've talked to 2 or 3 restaurants that didn't want to take it because they thought it was a scam.
Oh,
And I
really?
said, no, it's free. You can get it. And that person said, well, if you're going to do something again, let me know.
Heck, everybody I talked to said, pass it on. We can use it. I mean, all these small businesses I talk, especially restaurants, they say we're struggling. You know, we're just getting by. That's all we're doing.
Go ahead and tell them, because here's the money.
I'm with you. But
Tell 'em.
when this runs out, what replaces it? This artificial, well, it's good. It's
Yeah,
good.
well, we'll have the federal money coming down, the $22 million, and that will also be for
Now,
grant, too.
Obviously, federal money got plenty of money, so.
And
we'll
if we
just-
do that infrastructure projects, community colleges will.
Only a couple $1 trillion, it's no big deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is amazing. I don't know how. Well, anyway, I mean, I support it, so I move to approve the parameters of the grant programs for restaurants, hotels, and online sales, and have the Commissioner President sign the agreements from the state of Maryland and any related items.
Second.
A question on the hotel, is this funding based on the number of rooms that they have? The same as last time? Last time was based on number of rooms, wasn't it?
It's open a little bit more. I think before they had a limit that you had to have at least 8 rooms.
So it's just playing 25,000 regardless of the size?
Up to 25,000, yes.
Up to. So you're looking at the number of rooms they have based on some form of...
What we're going to do is this, like I said, open it up for a 3-week period and see who applies.
Right.
You know, there aren't that many hotels in St. Mary's County.
Sure.
And then just divide it up, and if we have money left over, we'll...
Okay.
So we'll do a heavy promotion to make sure everyone is aware of it like we always do.
I think last time you had a number, they were based on number of rooms. You had so much per room.
That was the amount per room, right? We're not doing that this time.
Not this time, okay. Okay.
Kind of doing it a little more simple.
So an 8-room hotel could get the same amount of money as a Hilton Inn or something?
That's true.
Goodness
The way we
gracious.
answer it.
Let's go buy a motel.
No, I ain't
Well, I
buying
mean,
no
I'll say the 8-room hotel was not eligible before, so they didn't get anything for hotel.
I'm thinking about Pier 450 down there, you know, that's a
That's what I'm
small
saying.
place.
They didn't get anything last time because they didn't have enough
I'm not
room.
trying to say that's good or bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say it's bad.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting at is they get 25, and the guy that has that Hilton Inn down there across from, I don't know, is that Olive Garden or whatever that is back in there? Anyway, seemed like there's be bigger impacts on bigger hotels.
Okay, I got a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioners. And the last county administrator item is item F for federal funding priorities. We started this request because each year the federal delegation requests an annual report for each capital improvement project that requests federal funding for the St. Mary's County CIP projects. So we started with 4 projects: the airport improvements, the rural legacy, the St. Patrick's Creek maintenance dredge, and then the St. Jerome's Creek. However, in addition to that, we looked at the other projects because Senator Van Hollen's office asked if there were any earmarks that the county wanted to submit. We do not have a formal process for that yet. However, we assumed that it was prudent to list those projects as well. So we looked at the Governor Thomas Johnson Memorial Bridge, Snow Hill Park, Recreation and Parks, they're due, Nicollet Park's due for a playground this year. The RAC, Regional Agriculture Center, also, and then the sidewalk projects. They do need to be shovel-ready, is part of the criteria, and so we figured if the commissioners wanted to submit all or some of the projects, then we're happy to move them forward.
Seemed like this would be the appropriate venue for the YMCA, for looking for the DCIP money for the A&E or whatever we could do with the community center. Is now the wrong time to bring that forward?
So the YMCA is not listed predominantly only because these are 22 and 23 projects, and so we would ask for those at the appropriate time. But yes, they would certainly be listed on this list, yes.
Okay.
So I move to approve the federal funding request letter to the federal delegation, support the department's completing of the online application consistent with the materials, and authorize the commissioner present to sign related documents.
Second.
We've got a first and second. All in
Just
favor?
a quick discussion. Based on how this is laid out, airport improvements is put on top of the Governor Thomas Johnson Bridge. I think it might be prudent to place the TJ Bridge as the first priority based on movement in Annapolis on the Thomas Johnson Bridge.
They are listed alphabetically. So
Okay.
if you want to move them, we're happy to move them.
Yeah, I mean, at first blush, I mean, I started looking at the monetary values, then I realized it wasn't by monetary. I didn't know if it was alphabetical, but if somebody's reading this, they may, unless you just want to put a sentence in here that says they're in no particular order.
I think
That's up to the commissioners.
I think it's
Yeah,
wise to just put, these are being alphabetically listed.
All right?
Yeah.
Other
Yeah.
commissioners okay with that? I'll just make reference to
Alphabetical
that.
That's fine, yeah, this way they don't think it's a priority the way they're listed.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Appreciate it. And
Any other?
Commissioner President Guy, that concludes county administrator time.
Okay, we got everybody approved. We got a first and second approval. Aye, everybody?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Got it. And that's the end of you, huh? Uh-oh, county administrator's over. Okay, next we return back to main agenda. Department of Economic Development request for public hearing, commercial property tax investment incentive ordinance. Mr. Castellanos is back on the hot seat again.
Thank you, Commissioner Guy. During the 2020 General Assembly session, Commissioners of St. Mary's County sought and received approval for the county to provide a tax incentive to encourage investment in specific areas of the county. In order to implement the enabling legislation, the county must adopt an ordinance. The legislation will allow St. Mary's County the ability to incentivize property owners in challenged areas to invest in their properties. This ordinance will allow the county to work with property owners to make valuable upgrades to their existing commercial properties and not see an increase in county property taxes for a specified length of time, either 7 or 10 years. The primary target area for this incentive is the commercial areas of Lexington Park. Many properties have been in existence for many years and would greatly benefit from improvements such as building renovation, painting, facade improvements, streetscape improvements such as landscaping and signage. Although the actual dollar amount of this incentive may be small, it will demonstrate that the county values reinvestment in properties that will give the Department of Economic Development an opportunity to meet with business owners and offer assistance in exchange for investment. The incentive also greatly complements the Sustainable Communities designation that we got recently for Lexington Park and Charlotte Hall. This designation opens up funding opportunities and programs aimed at increasing the quality of life in challenged areas. The minimum investment to receive this incentive is $25,000. We do anticipate the impact will be small. Again, we're not reducing any existing taxes, it's future taxes. So we're just holding taxes, county property taxes level for a certain time period. So we're asking the commissioners to set a public hearing for April 20th, 21. If that is set, then we'll come back, end the hearing process on April 27th, and we'll come back on May 4th for a commissioner decision.
Give me an example how this would apply to something.
So let's say you have maybe a mom and pop store down on Great Mills Road, and they want to do building renovation, maybe a facade improvement or upgrade the front and do some landscaping and stuff, and they're willing to put $30,000 in. We do a calculation to determine whether they would get a 7-year or 10-year tax holding, I guess you'd call it. And then for that period of time, based on the percentage, we compare it based on their assessed valuation. If it's over 15%, they would get 10 years. So when their tax bill comes in, if the assessed valuation of the county's property tax rate goes up, they would not be affected. So if they're paying $5,000 a year in county property taxes, that would be the same for that 10-year period. On the 11th year, it would go up to what the current value is.
Let me walk you through a scenario, and you can help me understand it.
Okay.
Somebody has a piece of property, and what they intend to do is do an improvement on it. Now, typically what happens, you go get a permit that alerts people over there at SDET that something's going on and something's being improved, so we may go down and take a look at it and see if we can up the property value, which is probably the intent of the person who's doing the renovation or whatever they're doing, the improvement.
Right.
So if that initial valuation was, say, for instance, $100,000, and now they do their investment for 25, 30, whatever, and that investment now goes to $150,000, that $50,000 differential will not be taxed?
Correct.
And that'll not be taxed for 10 years if it's what?
Over 15% compared, the investment compared to the assessed valuation.
Okay, so it's over 15%.
Yeah.
And if it's under 15%?
It'll be for 7 years.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to make one comment on the timeline. You say publish it in the Southern Maryland News. And here we're trying to work with our businesses in the local area. We're trying to have investment in the local area. And we're using our advertising to send it over to Easton or something. I would propose we start using the County Times more, since it does get broad circulation in the county and is focusing on St. Mary's County and not, providing money over to Easton. I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
We certainly can. It adds a week to our process because their deadline is yesterday instead of Tuesday. So we can certainly adjust the timeline accordingly.
There's other mediums as well besides just the County Times. So I think you have like the Southern Maryland Chronicle, you have the Baynet, you have all sorts of places that this can be advertised in. So, and I think it's worth taking a look at places that are servicing right here. I don't know if there's a particular legality.
No.
The lawyer leans forward.
That's the question.
The last time I checked, it has to be in a newspaper of general circulation, because usually there's a bill about every year in Annapolis that says, why newspapers? Why can't it be digital? And of course, the newspapers still have a lobby, and that gets defeated every year. So right now, we're currently stuck with having to go with a print newspaper.
Would the county Times be sufficient for that?
As long as it's a newspaper of general circulation, and I believe that meets the
I think
definition.
it meets definition now. So if we use that and then whatever digital stuff we can,
We
not
can
only our
certainly-
own county website, but other digital, I think it might be sufficient. We're going to check into that, right, Doctor?
Yeah, so we'll check that. Right now on the policy, it's either or based on timeline, as
Okay.
Commissioner Morgan checked on. But we'll review the policy and see if there's any opportunities to update.
And, DED does not do a lot of public hearings. I think this is maybe the second one since I've been here. And I think we're all geared up to go for this one. I think we have to put the ad in, I think this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So for this one, we already are hooked up with, we've already been working
Okay,
with some.
well, just in the future, it'd be.
Yeah.
So is there a cap on this? Is there something that's targeting smaller businesses? Because what I'm concerned about is, let's say you got Walmart, and they're like, ooh, I can go ahead and hold my property taxes for 10 years if I invest $50,000, which is a drop in the bucket to them. Is there a process in place to stop abuse of this incentive?
Commissioner Morgan, there is no upper limit, and, I think one of the things we were thinking about was even like large shopping centers. So if you have St. Mary Square or a center like that that could use a rehab, use some new pavement and kind of upgrade the whole center, we wanted to make sure we would encourage them to continue to invest. So we haven't put an upper limit on it.
But it needs to be 15% of the total assessed value. So
If their value is high, they're going to have to invest a lot
If it
of
was $1
money.
million, it had to be 150,000 improvement.
yeah, which for those larger places is nothing. And then for the long-term problem is they're being assessed differently than the mom and pop shops. Well, they're being assessed the same, but the assessment is a lot different, and the struggle is a lot different. So I just approach this with caution in the fact that these larger places, a lot of them have the money, and these incentives can be an abuse of the system and the tax incentives. So maybe something that you want to put in place, either after the hearing or where, there's a different criteria for larger mega corporations or plazas or something.
So in your example, we have the Ford, you and I are talking about this right now, the Ford dealership on Great Mills Road.
Yeah.
And what we could do with it.
Yeah.
Would this apply to that?
It would,
Okay, so the thing we're thinking would be advantageous.
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I'll move to approve a morning public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed ordinance to implement a commercial property tax investment incentive.
Second.
Have a first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
James Katz, please. Okay, next we will move right into the Department of Finance. Approval of non-recurring costs to the Maryland State Department of Education. First,
Looks like a slim list.
Excuse me?
Doesn't look like much of a list.
No, it's, there was a, direction was not received to include it, so we were going in with a zero. So this is on an annual basis. The commissioners and the superintendent must provide a list of non-recurring items to the Maryland State Department of Education. The initial schedule of excludable cost is based on the recommended budget and is due to the state by the last day of the March, tomorrow. The final schedule will be submitted to the state when the commissioners adopt the annual budget and is based on the adopted budget. So the FY22 Board of Ed budget request included $1,999,910 for non-recurring or other unique costs, and currently in the county's recommended budget, this request has not been approved. Thus, the non-recurring cost request schedule totals $0. And the commissioners have not yet approved the non-recurring schedule that is due for March 31st. So this is the request for signature on the form so that we can submit it to MSD tomorrow.
which is zero.
Huh?
Zero.
Yeah, but I guess my thought process is, if we do, in fact, make some kind of move out of fund balance to them, that becomes, what, MOE?
This is a non-recurring item. So this would be, you would take your...
I understand what this is.
I think
Okay,
we'd revise the form later. Is that
you're right.
how it would
If you
work?
decide to do it, we
Okay,
still
so
have
you-
another chance to submit this at the end of the fiscal year, prior to when the budget's actually approved in May.
Okay, so this can be
This is just the
delayed
first
till
round, yes.
May 31st.
Exactly. So if you decide to include the non-recurring in the approved budget, then we would update this and then resubmit it. We have to actually submit it twice to MSDE.
Okay. Any more questions, Commissioner?
I move to approve the schedule of non-recurring and other unique one-time costs to the Maryland State Department of Education for fiscal year 2022, and authorize the Commissioner President to execute the related documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, Department of Finance is still here.
We are still here. All right, Commissioners. After many budget work sessions, starting with CIP on October 27th, we bring forward to you a balanced budget to include $2.6 million. The remaining funds that were unallocated, that has now been included in your emergency reserve to be allocated after the public hearing. Okay? So the current general fund is $293 million, includes budget for the American Rescue Grant of $22.2 million, with the majority of that still unallocated until we get more specifics in April. CIP for FY22 is $54.7 million, and the out years for 23 through 27 total $255 million. The enterprise and special revenue funds were updated to include a new fund for the emergency service billing. Total new positions are 90.25 positions, of which 38 are revenue positions in the Emergency Services Billing Fund. Increase also includes the operating impact of the Adult Detention Center addition and the animal shelter projects, which includes combined 32 positions. $5 million of your FY 2020 unassigned fund balance is being used principally for the replacement vehicles and PAYGO for the Emergency Services Support Fund for the LoSAP Trust contribution. I've got, you'll see on the table of contents with all the detail of the items that are included, and we can start on page 1. You'll see this is, page 1 is actually the entire breakdown of where we started from March 9th, where it was just showing the increase of 10.6 over revenue over the baseline expense of 252. Then we moved on, and you can see as we go down the list, after we were down to, let's go down to the bottom. So in here, based on all the changes you've made, and let me just give you the information. The blue represents the American Rescue Act. That's the grant that's actually been considered as part of this recommended budget. So you can see of the $22.2 million, $28,154 is for the nurse in HR that they requested. $557,343 was allocated for the health department positions. $136,856 was for the sheriff nurse. And then $270,000 is for scholarships to help the students at CSM. And then the remaining of the 21.2 has been unallocated at this point until we receive more specifics, hopefully in April, May timeframe. But we're including this grant in here because we have to have budget authority. And I know that you were listening to the big grants that came before you earlier. We are going to have to bring forward, we need budget authority. So prior to any spending or any receiving, we have to have budget authority in place, because especially like the 4.5 that was here, that's going to come to the county, and then we're going to have to allocate it to the housing authority. So because we're receiving it, we have to have budget authority if we receive that $4.5 million. So in the next few weeks prior in April, we'll be coming forward with requesting an increase to your budget reserve. And right now I'm looking at about $6 million, maybe almost $7 million with all the additional grants that are coming through. Okay?
Too bad you can't get any of that administrative money.
We don't receive any administrative money, you're right. Right. So you'll see at the bottom, this shows the final balancing. You still have $5.9 million of your fund balance that has not been used, okay? the departments did identify $114,523 of they're going to pay for certain items in their 2021. A lot of times we do that with their equipment that they can find other sources. The revenue is at $293 million, and your expenses is at $293 million because we moved 2.6 into your emergency supplemental reserve to balance the budget. Page 2 is your revenue summary. And starting at the top, this is your property taxes, your income taxes, and your other local taxes. You can notice that the total state and federal grants, that's $32 million. Of course, that includes the $22 million. And then your $5 million for other financing sources are for non-recurring items. Okay? Then we have the detail of all your revenue starting on page 3. And you can see an increase to your property taxes of 3.9, your income taxes at 12.6. The other revenues, a lot of it has been reduced because a lot of them are based on service and fees and other tourism items. So you can see that other local taxes, that's got a reduction of 40,000. Highway user has a reduction of 108,000. Licenses and permits, that does have an increase of 71,050. Your charges for services has got a decrease of 142,000. Fines and forfeitures has an increase of 250. Your grants has the increase of 23.8, and your other revenue has a decrease of 527,000, bringing your total, again, increase to your budget to $39.8 million in revenues. Again, that still includes the 22.2. Your summary for your expenses are actually starting on page 6. And just like how we've handled the other, the CARES Act funding, we put that funding into, for the emergency rescue. Right now, it's not allocated into a particular department. It's kind of at the top, right under the county commissioner's, county administrator budget. So when we get that final allocation, it'll be allocated, but it'll probably land up in emergency services because that's where the CARES money, it's emergency money, and then it'll be allocated from that. We'll set up a project within that department. You can, so if we didn't have the American Rescue Grant in there, your county departments would have increased just by $5.2 million, which is really a 10.3% increase. Your elected officials' budget increased by $6.2 million. Your boards and agencies has increased by $3.2 million. Other budget cost is an increase of 2.6, principally debt service. And as you can see, when you get down to the transfers and reserves, your PAYGO, your amount is $2.2 million. That's going to your emergency services support fund and also going to solid waste fund to pay for their vehicles and a study that solid waste is doing. So we're not, normally we do a PAYGO and we send it over to the CIP. We're doing a PAYGO and sending it to those two funds. Okay? And then your reserve for emergency, you can see that's normally $500,000 that we usually have in your budget for you to address items throughout the fiscal year. You can see that that's now at $3.1 million because that includes that 2.6, and you'll have funds to address. We can listen to all the public hearing comments on April 27th, and then you'll have that money to allocate at that time, or leave it in your Commissioner's Emergency Reserve, whatever, however you choose to finish out your budget. Okay, pretty much all the spending units, the departments, the elected officials, the agencies includes pretty much a one-step equivalent of a roughly 2.5% increase. So all employees have pretty much been treated the same at this point, which is a good thing. Okay. Then we have the detail starting on page 7 for all of your expenses. And there's a lot of detail. All right, and I'm going to take you up to page 22. And of course, I mean, as I go through this, you're welcome to have any comments. To page 22 are the listing of all your positions, the 90.25 positions. So principally, county departments coming from the general fund, there's about 16.25 positions. 12 of which are for the animal shelter. The MS4, which is in Public Works and Transportation, and the programmer analyst, those were also prior years' operating impact. But your positions for animal shelter, they were part of the operating impact until we got the animal shelter actually started in, I think it's opening for June 22, which is part of this fiscal year. Okay, 38 positions that are in the Emergency Services Billing Fund, based on discussion last week. And then 36 positions for the sheriff, of which includes the 20 correctional officers, which was also the operating impact for the addition to the jail. So roughly 34 positions, and I think I added it up a couple times, was related to operating impacts on CIP of the 90.25 positions. Page 23 is a listing of the grants, and they continue on to page 24. And you'll see also that we have in there the $22.2 million under the federal. And if we remove that, your federal grants would have only gone up by $750,000, which is still a big number. Your state grants has increased by $925,000. County match has increased by $201,000. That's the required match, and over and above additional county funding is $61,000. Lots of grants. Page 26 is your operating impacts that are currently in here. And of course, the operating impacts you don't see for FY22 because now they're actually in the operating budget that we're working on. So you can see that we have FY 2023. We've got one position. It's another, I think, a quality water quality and nutrient for the MS4. That's got an FTE. And you'll also notice that the animal new shelters got $796,000. That is really the full year impact of the positions that we're adding for the animal shelter. The 1 month, the full year cost will be in 2023. So of course we also have that share. That'll be added and is included in the operating impacts for FY 2023. And then we have operating impacts in 2024 of $197,000, $30,000 in 25, $327,000, which is in 26, and then $4,900 in 2027. All right, now we're going to multi-year budget. So we included all the new assumptions we've got in here for, this is on page 26. Your total property taxes, of course, we're using a 2.5% assumption for out years from 23 through 26. The FY22 is based on the current assessments for FY 2022. Your income taxes has got a 3.5% growth, primarily for the 2 years, and then 24 through 26, we're using roughly a 3% growth because just to make sure with the calculation. But the 2 years is a 3.5, which is on the income tax calculation that we provided to you last week. Other local taxes, we've got a growth assumed in here of 1%, highway user 1%, licenses and permits 1%, charges for services 1%, fines and forfeitures, we usually keep that level, and then state and federal grants is roughly a 2% increase. And other revenues, we've got it $1 million in the out years. So you can see that the total recurring revenues, it goes across the bottom, and it's roughly, after you get through the one-time grant for the American Rescue, it's roughly an increase of $7 million each year in revenues. And of course, as we go through from year to year to year, we will adjust and monitor these to make sure that the assumptions, if they need to be changed or not. And we'll, that's just what we do. And they have changed over the years depending on what the property taxes and the income taxes or how the other revenues grow. Page 27 is your expenses that includes the revenue from the prior page at the bottom. So you can see in FY22, it's got all the departments, the Orphans Court, and the agencies that are all listed based on what is included now in your FY22 budget. It's got the other budget cost. It's got on the bottom. So you can see going out to the out years, your revenue from the other page was included, and your revenue growth in the out years is really about you can see in 24 through 26, 2.6% for those 3 years. It's still conservative. So hopefully, the difference then you can see from the expense and compared to the revenue. Right now, you can see the FY22. Of course, you don't have a number there because we're showing the budget as being balanced. And then you can see before the operating impacts, you've got the 1.3 in 23, the 3.1 in 24, and the 7.4 and the 11 in 26. And then when you add the operating impacts, which was on page 25 to the bottom, you can see that it actually brings the amount available in 23 down to 348,000. So that's a number we'll probably have to start watching to make sure we have enough, and it really depends on how much of the operating impacts is actually allocated. And then also, you can see 1.9 million in 24 and 25, and 26 looks like we're in much better shape. And then under that, we've got the enrollment for the Board of Ed MOU calculation, and we've got that calculated, if you look at the MOE for the Board of Ed, based on the current, the enrollment projections that were provided from the Board of Ed, depending on how we take the current divided by the, the prior enrollment times the new projected enrollment, and that's what the allocation as it goes across comes up with. So as your allocations to the Board of Ed changes, then of course that number will change also. Okay? Then we go to our enterprise and special revenue fund, starting on page 28. We've got the first one of Recreation and Parks Enterprise Fund, and you can see that fund is total revenues at $4.1 million, and the expenses are at $4.2, with showing a deficit of $68, but they're in good shape because they've got a fund balance of $547,000 to the good. Okay. Then we've got the Wicomico Shores Golf Course Enterprise, and of course, they still have a deficit at the end of June 2020 of $305. We continue to monitor this fund. You can see on the recommended for FY22 that the revenues are still are at $1.4 million, and then the expenses are still at $1.4. So you can see that they're making some progress. If you look at FY2020, they had a deficit of 145. The approved was a deficit of 70, so now they're down to 31. So they're making changes internally and also with their revenues, trying to turn that around and make that positive. Solid Waste and Recycling Fund. This is on page 30. You can see the big change on here is the revenue source of PAYGO from the general fund up on top for $1,057,000. That's for the replacement vehicles and the study. And those expenses are actually down below. Have already been incorporated. And then this is showing with revenues exceeding, revenues are under expenses by about $454 million. So this is another fund that we continue to look at and watch and make sure it stays above the line. So, and of course, the fee is included at 96.57%. That's the annual 2% increase that was approved a few years ago in the resolution in the ordinance that has that inflation factor built in. Okay. Page 31 is the miscellaneous revolving fund. This is made up of multiple little funds within departments, and of course their fund equity at the end of June 2020 was $932,000. So this fund, there's a lot of revenues that have been received over the years, and then they have, you can see that they're drawing down on some of that in FY22 of $147,130. We have our Special Assessments Fund, which is primarily for properties that are actually being billed. They're assessed through the Treasurer's Office during the annual tax levy, and then we pay back the loans for the county over these years. And you can see that, which for erosion control and the roadway improvements, waterway improvement, and street lights. So these are all in process, and the debt service that we pay back on Maryland loans, normally they're interest-free loans, is about $48,000 a year. Then on page 33, we've got the Emergency Services Support Fund, and this has also has the 1.2. You can see that at the top, the general fund PAYGO for LoSAP, that is there. We are funding the LoSAP OPEB 100% here. You can see of the 1.2, so that is an increase of $200,000 over the FY 2021 approved. And then you see Advanced Life Support operating is down to $230,000. $720 because the 471 was being moved over to the emergency billing fund as part of the chase cars. And also on rescue squad operating allocation, you'll see that at $1.6 million. I probably should have added a separate line, and we'll correct that in the recommended budget book, where normally the allocation is $133,000 each year to all the rescue squads. They receive $19,000 each. And then the additional amount, bringing it up to 1.6, is the amount that's going to be PAYGO that goes to the emergency service billing fund. So it's the 1.4 and the 133 equals to 1.6 on that line, okay? Then we have on page 34, the Emergency Services Billing Fund. This is based on what was approved or provided direction on last week. So you can see that we have the Emergency Services Billing, 50% net of fee. That's at the $1.6 million in revenue. You've got the PAYGO from the Emergency Services Support Fund of 1.4 because we needed recurring funding for this fund to pay for the recurring positions in this fund. And the Emergency Services Support Fund has a recurring funding from the Emergency Services Support Tax. A lot of emergency services. And then you'll see the 38 positions that are below based on the Rescue Squad Association recommendation. And right now it shows that the revenues are exceeding the expenses by roughly $239,000. So we do have some extra room in here in case any additional expenses, or if some of the maybe the emergency services billing fee doesn't come in as projected. So that'll be a fund that we'll keep track of and monitor and actually build some trend up into it as we move forward. Page 35 is our, comes from the budget book and it's been updated for the number of properties. This is our fire tax. You'll see there are no increases at this time requested for this year to the fire tax rates. Rescue tax is on page 36. There are no increases to the rescue taxes at this point to the rescue rates. Okay? Then on page 37, we get to our CIP. I think this is what was in our budget package last week, showing the recommended budget for 22 on page 37, and it ends up on page 38, and it shows that we are balanced, $54.7 million. Of course, the biggest funding for this year is $25.5 million coming from county bonds. Then we start on the multi-year for the recommended capital, going from 23, that's been added through FY 2027. And again, all of those years are also balanced with the funds sources. Then we get to page 41. The FY 2021 fees and charges, proposed changes are in blue. And these will be the additional fees and charges that will be included at the public hearing, in addition to the constant yield tax rate in your FY22 recommended budget. So you can see the first set on page 41 are for the Garvey and Northern Senior Center activity funds with those proposed changes. Then at the bottom, we have the emergency services billing fees for the transport fee schedule, and then for the Medicare transport fees. And of course, these are all soft billing, so it'll be principally charged to individuals' health insurance. Okay. Page, I think we move forward and we get to page 45. We've got some, the blue's not an increase. It is an increase, but it's not something that we have to take the public hearing on the solid waste and recycling, because that was already approved to go up 2%, but we highlighted it anyway just to show that it's increasing. And then page 49, we've got some increases to the school age care and camps, and they continue on page 50. Page 53, we've got some increase to the fees for park support and athletic field lighting. On page 55, we've got some increases to men's basketball, women's basketball, adult volleyball, and on 56 to sports camps, we have some increases. And then we get to page 57. This is our constant yield tax ad, which we'll need to, one of the public hearings that we will hold on the 27th of April. And we will need to advertise this on April 16th in general section of the newspaper. And now with the prior discussion with county attorney, we'll have to determine, we normally put it in the Enterprise, so we'll have to work with him to determine which paper is the best paper to put it into. And that's got to be in the general part. It cannot be in the legal part, and the font's got to be big. It usually takes up a half a page. And then we have our notice of public hearing, which will be in the legal ads of the paper we select to put it in, and that's on page 58, and we'll advertise that on April 16th and the 23rd 2 times, and happy to say that the public hearing will be held here in this room again this year in lieu of Chopticon High School. Page 59 is my request for public hearing staff proposal. This is a request to go to public hearing on April 27th, 6:30 in this room. So the timeline will actually be May 30th. CSMC approves the recommended budget for public hearing today. Hold the public hearings on April 27th. The comment period closes on May 4th. Then we have 2 final budget work sessions on May 11th and May 18th, and the adoption of the budget is scheduled for May 25th. And then on page 80 is your signature page for the recommended budget. And that's my presentation. It's a lot, I know.
Mr. President, I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 recommended budget as presented and execute related documents.
Second.
Discussion. Thank you, Ms. Cudmore. It's a lot of work. It's a long process to get here. Right now, I can't support the recommended budget with $2.6 million going into Commissioner's Emergency Reserve when there's other needs, and I think that our revenue estimates are too low also. So I'll be voting no on this recommended budget.
Okay.
Well, Ms. Cudmore, I'll be voting yes, but I don't support the budget the way it is either. I don't support hiring 90.5 new people. You did a good job. I think the good news is we have a lot of money, but there's so many unknowns going on. I still believe that small business is hurting. Everybody I talk to keeps saying they're just getting by. This flood of federal money and now state money coming in, it's a good thing.
Yes.
But it is, the tide's going to go down on that. And these other expenses that I worry about is 90 people. Are we talking like an increase in $8 to $10 million when we talk about salary benefits? Is that the kind of money we're
Well,
looking
you
at?
can see from the multi-year, I do show that revenues are projected to go up about $7 million each year. And of course, our assumptions.
I've seen your projections.
Yes,
Listen,
sir.
I say this, only thing really guaranteed, and I've said it before, is expenses.
Right.
Now, we can put our projections out there, and let's hope they come true.
Right.
But, you know, if we're talking about $4.5 million worth of rental assistance to people, that sounds like there's a lot of people out there who are having a hard time making it. Now, once this assistance goes away in your out years, are these people going to be able to put their share of the $7 million in? I'm just not as optimistic, maybe, as you are. And I'm hoping I'm wrong and you're right. Good news is when you have it to spend, it's good news. But I don't believe we need to hire these people when this budget says we need to hire them. I think we can hire half-year hires. We can do contractual versus county hires. And so I'm going to vote to approve this budget for public hearing. But once public hearing, we have to understand the hard work will come in May 11th, May 18th, budget work sessions to hammer this thing out.
Absolutely.
I want to hear what the public has to say, so I'll
Sure.
approve it.
Thank you.
And I feel the same way. Public hearing will be on the 27th. After that time, the state will be done with this budget process, and we'll have a better feeling. It looks pretty good right now,
Yeah.
I will admit, but we'll have May 11th and May 18th to make any adjustments to this budget. And I feel that this is the recommended budget going forward is about the best we can do right now.
Right. And we normally, right.
And we see what happens.
And we always have a public hearing reserve going into the public hearing, which can be allocated.
And then on May 11th and May 18th, we can make our adjustments at that time.
Right. Thank you.
I think Commissioner Colvin hit the nail on the head. and proving from the spreadsheet that he sent out to department heads, which came back at 144,000 of, was 144, right?
120. It was, what, the
100,
reduction?
whatever, $120,000 roughly, that expenses are not guaranteed, because we've had money in the budget that's not been expended. So he did a good job on proving expenses are not guaranteed. And I think the other thing about hiring employees is if you don't build it, they don't come. So don't build it if you don't want to hire the people that need to support the facilities and the services.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that amount, the county department's budget reduction was $259,000.
oh, okay.
Yes, so,
Of non-guaranteed expenses.
right. So they reduced the expenses, exactly.
Very good.
I made a motion. I'll worry about the sitting in May.
Okay, I have a motion. Since we got some dissension here, I'd like to roll call vote, starting with Commissioner, this is promotion 1. Commissioner Hewitt?
Aye.
Mr.
No.
Cole? Nope.
No.
Nope.
Yay.
Yes, 3 votes, 2 noes. That's motion 1. Entertain motion 2.
Move to approve the Finance Department to schedule a public hearing on Tuesday, April 27, 2021 for the constant yield tax rate.
Second.
I have a first and second. Commissioner Hewitt?
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 ayes.
I move
Motion
to
3.
authorize the Finance Department to schedule a public hearing on Tuesday, April 27, 2021 on the St. Mary's County fee and charges increase.
Second.
I have a first and second. Commissioner Hewitt?
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 ayes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great work from both of you, all the work you've been doing here, your whole staff. We recommend for this. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move right into, looks like we finished up with the budget hearing now. So move right into Commissioner time, and we'll start with Commissioner Morgan this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, 2 things. I want to first wish everybody coming up a very happy Passover and happy Easter season. Please be mindful of Dr. Brewster's suggestions about wearing masks and being careful out there. I know it's nice and warm, it's time to go out. Comments were made about restaurants and things like that. I can tell you there wasn't a seat to be had at very many restaurants or bars or any place this past weekend because everybody wanted to get out, and a lot of people actually turned themselves away because they were so crowded. So that's a good thing. The second is we're going to have this budget discussion, a public hearing on the 27th. I know there's some concern out here about monies. I think as we look at this, you know, there's, as I use modern monetary theory as the new buzzword of the day. If you don't know where that is, that basically means we can print as much money as we want and never have to worry about paying it back again. It's a great AOC, Bernie Sanders mantra that's been going on for about 8 or 9 months now, but it even is, it's coming home to roost because we have all this money out there that just seems to keep coming in. So we will really appreciate everybody's comments on April 27th and then recognize that in May, we're going to have to do a lot more examination of where we are with the perceived money that will never die versus what we will be having to live with for my grandchildren who aren't even born yet will have to pay. So with that, I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. Be careful out there. Have fun.
Mr. O'Connor.
All right. So 2 things. House Bill 745, early voting centers in the county. So I think it's important that looking towards what is going to become law and the momentum that it has, that there's prior planning for early voting. I am a supporter of the plan of having 2 early voting centers, not necessarily the locations that have been laid out, but that's something that can be worked out in the future. I do believe there should be, if you're going to have 2, that you remove 1 and then you make it north and south. This way it's equidistant to for everyone in the county. So that's something that may have to be planned out. But with the fact that 745 is likely to go through, that would allow us to have more than 2, so allow us to have 3. I think the key thing to look at in this is that what happens in the primaries has to happen in the general. If it doesn't happen in the primaries, it can't happen in the general. So as we're looking at this budget, the primaries will be in this budget year. So if there's going to be action on any additional early voting sites, it has to be done in this budget. There's no way around that because unless there's a budget amendment mid-year, but that is what happened last election, and we can obviously see that that failed and it didn't get to where it needed to be for a multitude of reasons, communication being one. So if we're looking at this holistically, I think we need to really take a solid look at that moving forward. Bigger than that, expanding parks and recreation with our St. Mary's County Public Schools. What a great endeavor that's being started. I am glad to finally see that the school system is willing to work with the county and the county with the school system in trying to find out the route so we can increase our facilities without having to basically spend more and build more to do it. There's plenty of ball fields out there, and we are hurting for ball fields. And the other thing is of course, we have turf fields, which allows for a different type of play and will help with the expansion and movement out of teams in different tournaments. So I'm glad to see we're having conversations about that now, moving more towards a partnership, understanding that the taxpayers have paid for all of this, and, well, they deserve to be able to use all of it. So I'm glad that's happening, and Mr. Shepard is the right person to be at the helm leading that conversation. So again, Parks and Rec, as the weather turns nicer, is again at the forefront. So thank you again.
Very good. Today, the commissioners approved a recommended budget to bring to public hearing. I did not vote for it. I look forward to being able to vote for the final budget. There's still a lot of time. There's still work sessions that are going to happen, and I think we are going to reach consensus. I think we're going to come up with a budget that all 5 of us love, and it's going to be a great budget for the county as a whole. But we're not there yet, and I think we'll get there, though. But on a positive note, today is National Take a Walk in a Park Day. And last Friday, Commissioner President Guy and I took a walk in what will soon be the Shannon Farm Park down there by the Homegrown Farmers Market. We were taking a MDE, Maryland Department of Environment, was out there. The company that's helping design the trails were out there. Very impressive. It's an absolutely gorgeous spot. It's going to be a really nice waterfront park with just a beautiful trail down to the water. It's going to be very nice. So it was a good walk. I think Commissioner Guy and I enjoyed it. It was nice. It was a nice day, a beautiful day. Just good to be able to see it. Finally, happy Easter to everyone. I hope you have a great week, and thank you very much.
Mr. Hewitt.
Okay. Yes, it's budget season, and we're coming to a close. And the good news is, we'll get this done. And better news is look, there's all this extra money out there that kind of makes you wonder, is it real? Is it going to continue? Look, I'm someone who came from small business, and my family ran that business for almost 53 years in St. Mary's County. We lived through good times, bad times, great times, hard times, not so great. But I do remember, every Friday we did payday. And every Friday you had to write paychecks for employees because they had, children to feed and roofs keep over their heads, clothes keep on their backs. It is not that easy for these people in small business right now. They are hurting. Now, granted, these grants are great things, but they're going to go away. I personally don't believe this budget is something I can support in its current form. We're hiring way too many people. I didn't get elected to grow government by 10% or 12% in a single year, only because revenues are high because they're based upon a year that didn't include COVID. Until we see those impacts of COVID, or until we see what the ramifications are of this money, these grants going away, And is the ability there for economic activity to continue? And, you know, hey, look, it's a great thing that I get to see my grandchildren up in Baltimore this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. But then when I hear somebody at the CDC tell me, hey, look, there's impending doom out there. Well, I mean, what's the message? Why can I travel and it's okay, but then there's impending doom? It's just so much in the air that we don't understand yet. And same thing goes for this budget. So I look forward to public comment. Hey, that's the ideal time. And to all the teachers who have been sending the emails, I'll say thank you. Now, there's the form one that's sent that you just put your name and your email address, and that's good. I mean, it's very important. But just understand, when a form is continuous, it's not as effective. But I will say to the people who took the time to offer another paragraph or some introductory remark ahead of the form email, thank you for that. Because it says you took time, and you took the time to look at it. Now, I also say be careful of people who tell you, you know, a year ago that you're getting too much and, you know, you didn't need it. Now they want to give it all to you. Be wary of that. It has to make sure that we have sustainability, and that's what concerns me. Is it sustainable? But I do believe teachers are worth investing. So, spring is here. My neighbor put in his boat this past weekend. Great time to start boating. Got my Easter tie on. Great time of year. This is wonderful. Daffodils, all the grass is growing. I don't like seeing that because it means I got to cut it. But the good news is the warm weather's coming, and we're going to be able to enjoy ourselves outside. Happy Easter coming up. Enjoy your Easter with your family, your close friends, whoever you spend it with, and please, take care.
Thank you, Commissioners. You're right about Easter here, and some of the reason spring is a lot earlier than I expected already, because I got flowers blooming that usually is weeks away, and everything's worked out. And I will say I got 3 camellia trees that very seldom have a chance to bloom because usually the buds get frozen, and they never do a good breed. But this year, all 3 of them were just unbelievable. And just to look at them, it's just amazing. So enjoy this. I enjoy spring. I enjoy watching everything grow. And like you said, the weeds and the grass grow too damn fast, but they're coming up. Okay, we have an interesting budget this year, and the only thing I can say is it's not over yet. We got to wait till the end of the session up in Annapolis is done. Our public hearing on the 27th, and we have the month of May to make reconciliation and changes to this budget as needed. And hopefully we'll come up with a good budget. To me, this is the most important part of my job every year. We work on this budget for almost 7 months to come up with a budget for the next fiscal year. I know there's a lot in there as far as FTEs because we're expanding. And some of these are because of our detention center, and next year we'll probably have the opening of our animal facility, and they started clearing the land already. So these are things that we have to include in this budget because they're probably going to happen this fiscal year coming up. So it's important that we keep an eye on what is happening, why we're expanding, and what's going on. Now, things I'm looking at too is to give a little chance for some of this COVID to pass us by, and hopefully things will get relaxed a little bit and things may change, and we'll get more of our volunteers back in service and things like that. So I want to be careful about how we go into a full-time operations on any kind of commitment here. So we got to be careful how we do that. And we don't know about these grants and these spending that we're getting down from the federal government. State. It's great to see all this money. It's unbelievable. But then at the same time, we have to be careful about how we spend this on capital improvements, because all of a sudden they become reoccurring costs. We got to fund them every year from now on out. We have to take care of the buildings and structures. We have to put people into them. These are reoccurring costs that would last us for a lifetime. So we have to be careful about how we budget this money, how we use it. Next, once again, I want to thank Dr. Brewster for her cooperation and her hard work during this COVID-19 pandemic, and all of her people and all the great volunteers that have been a part of this service. I was impressed today. My wife and I volunteered out there in Hollywood to help, and it was amazing, the people that were there volunteering to give shots to our people, and this will continue on. With that said, churches are opening up a little more now. We've got a little more capacity. We're going to try to make our Easter Sunday services this year, so let's go ahead and attend and thank God for what we do have right now. So Easter time is Sunday, and so enjoy it. And enjoy the spring and the continued warm weather. With that said, I need a motion to enter into closed session.
I move to enter into closed session to discuss legal.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. This session closed. Thank you.